the most important secret hidden beneath the ocean floor. What if everything we thought we knew about human civilization was wrong? What if the key to our survival lay not in the stars above, but in the crushing darkness 2 miles beneath the waves? Dr. Sarah Chen had spent 17 years studying the ocean floor, but she'd never seen anything like this. The sonar readings from the mid-Atlantic ridge made no sense. At 11:47 p.m. on March 15, 2019, her research vessel Challenger 2 had detected something that would rewrite human history and potentially save it. "Run it again," she told her technician Marcus Webb, though she already knew what the screen would show. A perfectly geometric structure, roughly the size of Manhattan, sitting 12,000 feet below the surface where no structure should exist. Marcus's hands trembled slightly as he worked the controls. "Sarah, this can't be natural." She stared at the image forming on the screen. Straight lines, right angles, deliberate construction. And it was old. So old that coral formations 3 feet thick had encrusted every surface. "Get me a direct line to Dr. Yamamoto in Tokyo," Sarah said quietly. "And Marcus, don't tell anyone else. Not yet." The discovery. 3 weeks earlier, Sarah's team had been conducting routine seismic surveys along the mid-Atlantic ridge, searching for hydrothermal vents that might harbor extremophile bacteria. The ridge itself was fascinating enough, a massive underwater mountain range where the Earth's tectonic plates pulled apart, constantly creating new seafloor. But what they found was anything but routine. The first anomaly appeared as a shadow on their side-scan sonar. Most underwater features showed organic, flowing shapes worn smooth by millions of years of current. This shadow had corners. Dr. Hiroshi Yamamoto arrived from Tokyo within 48 hours. At 73, he was the world's foremost expert on ancient civilizations and underwater archaeology. He'd spent decades searching for Atlantis, weathering the ridicule of his peers who considered it a fool's errand. Now, standing in the Challenger 2's lab, staring at Sarah's data, he wept. "Do you understand what this means?" he whispered, his English accent perfect, despite Japanese being his native tongue. "Every myth, every ancient story about advanced civilizations lost to the sea, they weren't myths." Sarah had called Hiroshi because of a detail she'd almost missed. The structure's dimensions matched, almost exactly, descriptions from Plato's account of Atlantis. But there was something else, something that made her blood run cold. The structure was emitting heat. After 12,000 years underwater, whatever lay beneath the ocean floor was still active. The descent. It took 6 months to organize the dive. 6 months of securing funding, assembling the right team, and keeping the discovery secret. 6 months during which Sarah barely slept, haunted by the same question: what could possibly still be functioning after so long? The submersible Deep Star could carry 3 people to depths that would crush a human body like an aluminum can. On November 3, 2019, Sarah, Hiroshi, and Jack Morrison began their descent into the unknown. The sunlight disappeared within minutes. At 200 feet, they entered the twilight zone, where the last hints of surface light faded to deep blue. At 1,000 feet, they switched on the exterior lights, revealing an alien world of bioluminescent creatures that pulsed and glowed in the darkness. Passing 6,000 feet, Jack announced, his Australian accent calm despite the growing pressure. Outside, the hull creaked and groaned, temperature dropping to 2 degrees Celsius. Sarah watched the depth gauge with mounting anticipation. According to their surveys, the structure began at 11,800 feet. Every foot they descended increased the pressure by another 45 pounds per square inch. At their destination, the pressure would exceed 5,000 pounds per square inch, enough to crush their submersible like a tin can if anything went wrong. There, Hiroshi breathed, pointing ahead. The lights caught something that shouldn't exist, a wall. Not rocks or coral formations shaped by current and time, but a wall. Smooth, deliberately constructed, stretching beyond the reach of their lights. Jack maneuvered closer, and Sarah gasped. The surface wasn't stone, it was metal, or something like metal, covered in a patina of rust and marine growth, but unmistakably artificial. And carved into the surface, barely visible beneath the incrustation, were symbols. "My God!" Hiroshi pressed his face against the viewport. "That's not any language I know, but the structure, those characters are too sophisticated to be coincidental. This is writing. Advanced writing." They followed the wall for nearly an hour, their lights revealing more impossibilities. Massive columns that had once supported something long since collapsed, roadways laid out in geometric precision, and everywhere those strange symbols, as if the builders had wanted to leave a message for whoever found their city. Then they found the entrance. The message. It wasn't subtle. A triangular opening, 40 feet tall, completely clear of debris, despite the sediment that covered everything. The edges were too perfect, too clean. Something had kept this entrance maintained for thousands of years. "That's our invitation," Jack said grimly. "Question is, do we accept?" Sarah checked their oxygen levels and battery power. They had 4 hours before they'd need to surface. "We go in, but carefully." The passage descended at a gentle angle, walls lined with more of that strange metal. Their lights revealed something that made Sarah's archaeological heart race. Murals, preserved impossibly well, showing scenes of a civilization that shouldn't have existed. People, or beings that looked remarkably human, standing before massive buildings. Ships that sailed both water and sky. Diagrams that looked like star charts. And everywhere that recurring symbol, a spiral within a circle, radiating light. "They were advanced," Hiroshi murmured, his camera recording everything. "Sarah, you need to see this."
More advanced than any civilization should have been 12,000 years ago. The passage opened into a chamber so vast their lights couldn't find the far walls. Jack cut the engines, letting them drift forward in eerie silence. Then Sarah saw what waited in the chamber's center. A sphere, 15 feet in diameter, hovering 3 feet above the floor with no visible support. And it was glowing, a soft blue-green luminescence that pulsed like a heartbeat. "That's what's generating the heat signature," Jack said unnecessarily. They all knew. They'd found something impossible, something that defied every law of physics and history they knew. Hiroshi was studying the murals that covered the chamber walls. "Sarah, you need to see this." She tore her gaze from the sphere and looked where he pointed. The mural told a story, humanity's story, but not the one in textbooks. The images showed a thriving civilization, cities built on coastlines, technology that rivaled or exceeded modern capabilities. Then disaster. A series of panels showing the Earth itself in distress, massive waves, volcanic eruptions, climate chaos. And in the final panels, a choice. The symbols showed people descending deep into the ocean, building this structure, placing the sphere, preserving something. It's a library or an archive. They knew their civilization was ending, so they preserved their knowledge where it could survive. But there was more. The last panel showed something that made her heart stop. The same disasters repeating, but in the future. A warning. "The sphere," Jack said urgently, "it's responding to us." He was right. The pulsing light had intensified, and now holographic projections were forming in the water around them. Impossible, yet undeniable. Mathematical equations, star charts, DNA helixes, schematics for technologies that Sarah couldn't begin to understand. And then words, not in the ancient symbols, but in modern English, forming from light itself. "You have been warned." The warning. The holographic display expanded, showing Earth from space. But something was wrong. The ice caps were larger than they should have been. Cloud patterns moved in unnatural configurations, and overlaid on the image were markers, dozens of them, highlighting spots across the globe. Yellowstone, the Canary Islands, the San Andreas Fault, the Cascadia Subduction Zone. Tectonic instability points, Sarah whispered. But why would they? The image shifted, showing Earth's timeline, not thousands of years, but millions. And there, repeating, in a pattern too regular to be natural, were events. Mass climate disruptions, geological catastrophes, civilization collapses. And it's cyclical, Hiroshi breathed. They discovered that Earth goes through these cycles of instability, not random, predictable. New images appeared. This civilization, the builders, had detected the pattern. They'd calculated when the next cycle would begin, and according to their data, humanity was running out of time. The holographic date appeared, 2027, 8 years from now. But the sphere wasn't finished. New schematics appeared, showing technologies that could stabilize tectonic activity, machines that could moderate climate systems, even methods to predict earthquakes and volcanic eruptions years in advance. The ancient civilization had solved these problems, and they'd left their solutions behind, buried beneath 2 miles of ocean, waiting for humanity to be advanced enough to find them. "This is why they built this place," Sarah said, her voice shaking. "They couldn't save themselves. The disaster came too quickly. But they could save whoever came after. They could save us." The display showed one final image, the sphere itself, with instructions. It wasn't just a data storage device. It was a key, a way to access a network of similar structures hidden around the world, each containing more knowledge, more solutions. But there was a catch. The symbols made it clear the information could only be accessed by a unified humanity. The technology was too powerful to be controlled by any single nation or group. It required cooperation on a scale humanity had never achieved. "That's the real secret," Jack said quietly. "The technology to save ourselves has been here all along, but we can only access it if we're willing to work together." They built in a safeguard. The decision. They surfaced after 4 hours, their heads spinning with impossible knowledge. Sarah immediately called an emergency meeting with Hiroshi and Jack in the ship's conference room. "I think we have to tell the world," she said. "Tell them what?" Jack challenged. "That we found Atlantis? That they predicted the end of the world? Sarah, they'll think we're insane. Or worse, every nation will race to claim the site for themselves. That's exactly what the builders tried to prevent." Hiroshi was silent, staring at the photos they'd taken. Finally, he spoke. The builders were wise. They knew that the knowledge itself wasn't enough. Humanity had to be ready, not technologically, but spiritually, ethically. We had to be capable of cooperation before we could access the tools of survival. Then what do? Sarah asked. We do what the builders did. We preserve, we document, we prepare, but we wait for the right moment to reveal this, when humanity is ready to hear it without tearing itself apart in the process. Over the next 3 years, they made repeated dives to the site. They documented everything, translated the symbols, understood the technology. They discovered that the builders weren't human, or at least not exactly. They were our predecessors, a species that had evolved, advanced, and ultimately faced extinction from the same geological cycles that now threatened humanity. But they'd left us a gift, not just technology, but wisdom. The murals showed that their civilization had nearly destroyed itself through division and competition before learning to cooperate. The sphere would only activate its full knowledge base when approached by representatives of unified nations working together. It was a test, and it was brilliant.
The Revelation. On November 3, 2022, exactly 3 years after their first dive, Sarah stood before the United Nations General Assembly. Behind her, Hiroshi and Jack sat with representatives from 30 nations who had been carefully brought into the secret, sworn to cooperation. 3 years ago, she began, we made a discovery that changes everything we thought we knew about human history. But more importantly, we discovered something that could determine humanity's future. She showed them the images, the structure, the sphere, the warnings, the technology. The chamber erupted in chaos, shouts of disbelief, accusations of fraud, demands for immediate access to the site, exactly what they'd feared. But Sarah had learned patience from the builders. She waited for the noise to die down, then spoke again. The builders anticipated this reaction. They built a safeguard into their gift, the full knowledge, the technology that could prevent the disasters they predicted can only be accessed through global cooperation. No single nation can unlock it. No corporation can buy it. No military can seize it. She paused, letting that sink in. We have 5 years until the projected beginning of the geological instability cycle. 5 years to prove we're worthy of the gift we've been given. 5 years to show that we've learned the lesson our predecessors learned too late. We survive together, or we don't survive at all. The vote took 3 months. The negotiations were brutal, marked by walkouts and threats. But slowly, impossibly, an agreement emerged. The Global Geological Stability Initiative, jointly controlled by every nation, answerable to none, dedicated to implementing the technology from beneath the ocean floor. The sphere activated fully on March 15, 2023, when representatives from 193 nations touched it simultaneously in a ceremony broadcast worldwide. The flood of data that emerged would keep scientists busy for decades. Now, in 2025, the work continues. Around the world, the ancient technology has been deployed. Tectonic stabilizers reduce earthquake risk. Climate moderation systems help balance global temperatures. Early warning networks give populations hours or days to evacuate instead of minutes. The predicted 2027 crisis hasn't been averted. The geological data suggests that might be impossible. But humanity is prepared now, armed with knowledge that took a previous civilization thousands of years to develop. Sarah often returns to the site, diving down to the chamber where the sphere still pulses with its ethereal light. She thinks about the builders, whoever they were, and the incredible gift they left behind. They had understood something profound, that the greatest technology isn't found in weapons or machines, but in the simple act of cooperation. That survival isn't about dominating nature or each other, but about working together to face challenges too large for any individual or nation. The most important secret hidden beneath the ocean floor wasn't the advanced technology or the warnings about Earth's cycles. It was a message across thousands of years, from one civilization to another. You are not alone. Others have faced what you face. They failed, but they ensured you wouldn't have to. Learn from their mistakes. Set aside your differences. Save each other. And humanity, staring into the abyss of potential extinction, finally learned to listen. The work continues. The sphere still glows in the darkness, 2 miles down, waiting for the next generation of humans to dive deep and learn new secrets, because the builders left more than just solutions. They left hope. And sometimes, hope is the most important secret of all.